What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another preview stream. It is Luton at home, and it feels like ages since Spurs have played. 2 weeks. This international break really has dragged, but at least there's no interruptions now from now to the end of the season.
Feels good to be back.
We don't play Man City.
Exactly. Feels good to be back watching Spurs again. Hate international football, can't stand it, but excited to see Spurs back in action. And we need to kind of get back to winning ways because, you know, we ended the last international break off a really bad defeat. So need to, you know, right those wrongs, basically, that awful Fulham game.
Yeah, it's time to get back on track, back to winning ways. And we've got a treat for you guys today. We've got a Tottenham update to do live on stream, and then we'll get into the predicted lineup and match review. But let's start off with this Tottenham update, looking at the last 24 hours of Tottenham news. And the first one excites me a lot. It goes by the name of Dani Olmo of RB Leipzig. The Mail reporting that Tottenham, Chelsea, Man United, Man City and Real Madrid are the clubs tracking RB Leipzig's Dani Olmo. The 25-year-old Spain international is continuing to excel at RB Leipzig and has a clause that becomes active this summer where he can leave for £52 million. And I think that's a steal for someone like Dani Olmo.
I mean, you think about the price paid for Brennan Johnson and what was it, a few million more, and you can get someone like Dani Olmo.
Yeah.
Obviously, the sticking point would be Spurs don't like paying release clauses because it means to pay the release clauses all the money up front. We like to play in instalments, and we don't like to just chuck a big.
Wasn't Porro's a release clause?
I don't think in the end it
wasn't in the end, but the price that we paid was the actual release clause.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so we don't like to just activate a release clause like that, unlike other clubs who are more willing to do that. So I don't know if that would affect the deal, but I love Dani Olmo. I think he's such a silky player. I look at him as like a bit of like a modern day Yossi Benayoun, like a little nimble player who's really good in those half spaces. Such a good technical. Benayoun was a great player.
Yeah, but Dani Olmo is world class player.
I think Benayoun was brilliant. Anyway, it's a different discussion. But Dani Olmo is brilliant. I think he's great international level as well. I think in the World Cup he had a really good tournament. I'm always impressed when I see him for RB Leipzig. And as well, what's crucial is he's really versatile. Can play on the wing. Can play in the central positions, also in potentially a false nine position as well. He can play. Such a clever player, such a great technician. I think it'd be fitting right in at Spurs.
And either wings as well, which is great versatility to have for Spurs. In terms of when you're looking at the clubs that are interested in him, I mean, Chelsea, who knows if Chelsea are going to spend big money on anyone this summer with the financial restrictions that they've got. Man United, if you judge it between Tottenham and Man United, surely you go to Tottenham above Man United looking at this current season. And then you got Man City and Real Madrid. Are Real Madrid really going to spend 50 million on him when they've got Bellingham and they've got Mbappe coming in and all these players?
They've got Tchouameni, they've got Valverde, they've got the midfield sorted as well. So yeah, they really don't need him.
I don't really see the Real Madrid one being a go. But Man City are the real danger here, probably.
Yeah, I think he'd fit right in at City because of Pep Roulette. He'll get plenty of game time. Obviously, maybe they'll let go of. Maybe Grealish will leave. Maybe is Nunez going to stick around? But look, there's always rumours about Bernardo Silva. He's always looking to leave. He would be a brilliant kind of replacement for Bernardo Silva. He would fit right in. I think, Man City, obviously, if they're really seriously interested. And also the difference between us and City, and I would say probably Man United, is they're probably going to be more willing to just stump up all the cash up front and say, here's 52 million, let's just sign him, rather than Spurs like negotiating, trying to get it down, trying to pay in installments, all this kind of stuff. So I think if both those clubs are seriously interested, I do find it hard to think Spurs will be able to get ahead of them. But if we can convince him we're the right project, I'd love someone like Dani Olmo at the club.
Yeah. You would think, though, like being at RB Leipzig, his next move will be like a monstrous club, because RB Leipzig is like kind of project club. And the move after that probably isn't to a Tottenham, probably is to a Man City.
Yeah, although Spurs are hopefully getting into that conversation. Obviously not Man City, but like we're obviously a big club in the Premier League. So I think players do look at Tottenham as like a big step now, rather than like 10 years ago when it wasn't as big a step. But obviously if Man City are involved, it's hard to compete with them.
Next up, let's talk about Santiago Gimenez. Caught offside, very reputable source there, says that Tottenham would like to beat the competition of Santiago Gimenez's signature. The club have already made contact with the Feyenoord star, who was their number one target after Kane's exit. And the Mexican is very much a top priority for the target of number 9 position. The 22-year-old has been in fine form this time, registering 24 goals and 5 assists in 35 games this season. And Postecoglou's side, of course, have alternative options on their transfer shortlist, such as Dusan Blahovic, Jonathan David, Evan Ferguson and Ivan Toney, and are also noted as alternative. That said, Spurs are confident of landing the final frontman this season, and talks are intensifying. I mean, I do find this one kind of hard to believe when we've got Sonny, who's being deployed as the number 9. We've got Richarlison there. We've got Alejo Veliz out on loan as well. So I kind of feel like we're going to focus on wingers as opposed to number 9.
Yeah, especially because he's going to be a large fee as well. So if we're kind of looking at him, for that kind of fee, you'd have to think he'd have to be a priority in the window for that kind of deal to get done. Obviously, he's a brilliant player. I'm not surprised that Tottenham would be interested in bringing someone like him to Spurs. Even with Sonny and Richarlison here, like would be a fantastic addition. He's a brilliant striker, really good technician, and even though he's had a great season in Holland, what I really like about him as well is in the Champions League when he played, he made a big impact there as well. Even though Feyenoord themselves didn't, he made a big impact. So I think he's going to have a lot of interest around Europe, but whether Tottenham are the club to stump up the big fee for him, as you say, when we have 2 number 9s who are both scoring goals right now, I think Tottenham are going to look to, if they're going to make a big signing, I think it'll probably be on the wing, and I don't see Tottenham making many big signings.
The only way I can see this happening is if Richarlison does end up leaving. Let's say a big bid comes in for him from Saudi, and he accepts to go there and stuff like that. That's the only way I see us bringing number 9. But if everyone stays, then I just don't think this is a viable option. Next up, let's talk about Samuel Illing Jr. The Football Insider says that Tottenham, West Ham, Brighton and Everton are plotting moves to Juventus star Samuel Illing Jr. Illing Jr. is 20 years old, out of contract in the summer of 2025 at Serie A Giants, who have reluctantly accepted that they may have to cash in on the versatile attacker to avoid losing him for free.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Obviously, there's been rumoured a lot about Spurs being interested in him. For me, obviously, I don't know how much of an impact he's made at Juventus this season. If he's playing regularly, is he going to be a player we sign like completely ready to step in and be one of the number 1 wingers at the club? Because that's the kind of level I'm looking at. If we're signing him plus another winger, then that's okay because he's a young and up and coming one, and maybe he's one that can develop into a star. I don't think he's at that level at the moment, but I just hope that if we're not signing him with a view of like he's going to be this winger that we're looking for, because I don't know if he's at that level yet. Yeah,
I think that's absolutely spot on. So if you bring him in with someone like a Nico Williams or who's the other man that we were talking about on the right hand side, Rafinha, exactly. Like if you bring him along with one of the other two, then I think it's acceptable. But then if it's just him, you're talking about Levy up to his old tricks again.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case. But maybe there's a deal. Maybe if we can get him on a good deal, that's something that, again, looking to the future, this could be a player who's comfortable on both wings and could be a real important player for us.
Yeah, I'll be very much open to it for sure. Ange Postecoglou has been speaking in his press conference regarding Cuti Romero. He brought you the news that Cuti does want to express the desire to go and play at the Olympics, which finishes just 3 days before the start of next season, which means he wouldn't have a pre-season, which means he would probably miss the first couple of games potentially of the new season. Ange has been saying, and he says, yeah, look, with all those things, the Olympics is a little bit different issue because the clubs aren't obliged to release players. Certainly as a club, we'll make sure there is a balance there. My advice would be, with the Copa America and hopefully us gearing up for a big season, rest would be the better policy. And I think we can all get behind that.
Definitely, but it's interesting that he's been very clear on that, because you'd expect with that kind of situation he would have to say, "Oh, I'll have to chat with Romero, and then we'll discuss it." But he's made his position really clear. I think he should rest. Basically, he could. And I think obviously he hasn't outright said that I'm not going to allow him to go, but he is definitely, I would say, more than a strong hint. Like, oh, I'm going to suggest he doesn't go and he rests. Now, could that cause some conflict between him and Romero? That could be an interesting situation, because we know how Romero is a very headstrong kind of person. He's a player who loves his country and has done a lot. Like, he's done a lot even in his time at Spurs to be available for Argentina. You just got to remember, when was it? A couple of years ago.
It was the World Cup.
No, that was the World Cup, but even before that, if I remember rightly, didn't he get arrested on the pitch or something because of
the COVID
situation? He travelled against the club's wishes to go to Argentina, didn't he? Yeah. And the club told him not to go because of the whole. I can't remember what the situation was. A lockdown situation. We weren't. I think the Premier League weren't allowing players to go to their international duties or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I think him and Lo Celso both got like.
But
arrested
they went to the game and then the government they stormed the pitch, didn't they? The police or whatever, and stopped the game. I think it was against Brazil, if I remember. I can't remember. But anyway, that goes to show. Anyway, I'm trying to say is the lengths he will go to be available and play for his country. Now, if Ange turns around, and as Ange is saying, Spurs have no obligation to allow Romero for the Olympics to release him. Now, if Romero's adamant he wants to play, and Ange saying, I think we're not going to release you, could that cause a problem? I mean, with someone like Romero, I wouldn't be surprised if it does, to be honest.
Yeah, look, there is a possibility of that. But, I mean, playing at the Copa America, just after winning the World Cup as well, he's got to realise that he's got responsibilities at Tottenham as well. Like, we're the ones that pay his wages, and he's also vice-captain here. It's not like just he's any player here at Tottenham. He's vice-captain, he's a role model, he's a leader, and he needs to assume those responsibilities as well as the ones for his countries as kind of equal importance, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, as a Spurs fan, I agree. But as if I'm going into Romero's head, and you know, how often are you going to be are you going to be able to play at the Olympics and trying to win an Olympic gold for your country, which is one of the highest honours you could earn? And if this is one of the only opportunities he has to do it, then for one summer, not getting any rest, I think personally, like it's a foolish move. But maybe from his point of view, he thinks I can handle it. I want to be available for my country, and if they don't let me go, then I'm not going to be happy. And do we want to cause a sort of situation where he holds any resentment towards the club? That is it could be a tough situation. I really hope it doesn't get to that. I hope Ange just sits down with him and he kind of sees where Ange is coming from and he agrees. But knowing Romero and how stubborn and headstrong he can be, I don't know if it'll cause a problem. I hope not, though.
Yeah, I hope not as well. Let's hope it just it's more of him trying to realise those responsibilities that he does have here at Tottenham, and realise that next season could be a really big season for us, and him missing the early parts of the season, not going on pre-season and stuff like that, could actually be a detrimental effect.
But if he does go to the Olympics, and like let's say he disagrees with Ange, and Ange says, look, I'm going to leave the decision to you. I want you to stay, but if you really want to go, I'm not going to stop you. What do you think Spurs fans' reaction will be to that if he ends up going to the Olympics, misses maybe the first game of the season?
I can see like Ange's stance being like that, but I can't see Daniel Levy letting him go at all. I think Daniel Levy will be very stubborn about it.
Yeah, but let's say they leave the decision to Romero. I'm saying from Spurs fans' point of view, do you know, because there was a lot of discussion about does he care more about Argentina than Spurs? Look at him, he's always making himself available for Argentina. He missed the last, few weeks before the World Cup. Essentially, a rumour, the conspiracy was because he wanted to be fit for Argentina. Do you see Spurs fans holding that against him?
I think some will. For sure. I think somewhere. I think it all depends on how it all plays out. I mean, if he goes and they go out early and he's back for pre-season or whatever, then I think it'll be fine. But if it rolls over into the season and he misses pre-season, he misses the first few games, maybe even more, because if he's playing Copa America and Olympics back-to-back, he's going to need rest. You can't just go straight into the hustle and bustle of the Premier League season, week in, week out. He's going to need to take off at least 2 or 3 weeks at the start of the season. And then you've got international breaks coming in the start of the season next year, so it's going to start a whole disjointed start of the season for Cuti Romero. And
imagine
it will annoy me massively.
Imagine he misses the start of the season, then makes himself available for international duty.
That's what will happen.
That would be that. Then a lot of Spurs fans would get very angry. That kind of situation,
and probably rightly so. Let's finish off talking about these comments from Ashley Phillips, where he's stating his ambitions next season for Tottenham, and he says, I hope from this loan that I can gain the trust from the Spurs coaches so I can push to starting and every now and again, maybe in the cup competitions. I can only thank Plymouth for letting me come down here and get minutes regularly. And then he goes on to say of his inspirations, and he said that he's taken pieces from Romero and Van de Ven and tried to integrate those into his game this season. And in terms of Ashley Phillips getting minutes next season, I just can't see it with Dragusin having come in. Like, obviously, with Romero and Van de Ven having the 2 starting spots, you would assume that Dragusin comes in and starts the cup games. So, I mean, where does that leave Ashley Phillips? I kind of thought before Dragusin came in that Ashley Phillips would come and maybe fight for a spot next year in the first team. But now Dragusin's here. I don't know. I question that. Especially
with the rumours that Spurs are looking to sign another centre-back as well, a left-sided centre-back. That also will, again, limit his play time. The only real time I can see him playing is maybe the Carabao Cup if we decide to rest some players and maybe give him an opportunity there. It's interesting to hear him say it. that's what his head is at the moment. He wants to be back in the first team and maybe get some opportunities in the cup competitions, and that's where his head is at. But I do think for his development, maybe another loan deal is best, especially because he's still only 19. He's still will be 19 next season, so he's still very young. There's no rush to get him to the first team unless he's like really good enough and really like outstanding for a player of his age. So that would be my, at this point, my advice to him is to try and get as much regular play time as possible and not be sitting on the bench and looking on as other players are getting opportunities, especially players who are older than him and a bit more experienced, and be resentful of that situation. But if he's determined to do it and he thinks he's good enough to be getting opportunities, then I wish him all the best. But I think personally, I reckon that's probably what the club will be looking at as well. And judging by their actions, signing Dragusin and looking at another centre-back, it does point to me that they don't think he's ready at the moment.
Yeah, but then you think about like the future going forward. Like how can he get back into the squad? How can he get back in the team? All these players that we do have at centre-back specifically are all very young.
Yeah, he has to be good enough. He has to be better than them. That's the way.
All right, well, that is your Tottenham update. Let me know in the comments section below your thoughts regarding all of those matters. Let's go and have a look at the comments. A lot of love in there for Dani Olmo. Surprise, surprise, what a player he is. I've been dreaming of Dani Olmo in a Spurs shirt for a long, long time. But we've got a members chat. Member for 26 months, KPV, says, big up, lads. And he says, guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? Tell a friend. I'm not going to go through that. He's like, KPV's back, basically. He's saying, song sung by Eminem is what he's saying.
Is it KPV's back, or is it a certain player who's back?
He's saying KPV.
Oh, he's saying KPV. Oh, big up. Of course, that's the most important thing.
Exactly.
That's the most important thing. Big up KPV.
We will go into the predicted lineup next. If you can get that ready on the preview. Yeah, as KPV says in the comments, it's KPV who's back.
Come on. C-Tool says, with Lucas Bergvall coming in this summer and another attacking midfielder, do you reckon our midfield is fully covered? That's also an interesting aspect. Would Olmo stunt the progress of someone like a Lucas Bergvall?
I don't think so, because I think Olmo can play on the wings as well. I think he's so versatile. Like, if players emerge in the middle of the park, you can move him out to the wings. I think he's equally as good in every area of the pitch, this guy. I think that's how good of a quality he is.
It's going to be interesting to see how the whole Lucas Bergvall thing happens, because obviously he seems to be a player who's killing it right now in the Swedish league.
Yeah.
At 18, he seems to be too good for that league at the moment. He's every week he seems to be getting goal contribution, so he seems to need more of a challenge.
I don't know the quality of the Swedish league though. Like, is the championship better quality?
But whatever, he needs a better challenge in the Swedish leagues. He's too good for that. But yeah, the Swedish league's clearly not the best. It's probably not as good as the championship. But are we going to be sending him on loan, or do we think, okay, this guy is ready to make it to the first team next season?
It's an interesting question. I mean, when you look at the comments being made when we did sign him, and it did seem like it was assumed that he would be part of the first team next season. But that was the same with Ashley Phillips when we signed him too.
Yeah. Obviously, I think Bergvall, from what he's saying, he seems to want to be part of the first team. He seems to be an ambitious player. And look, to be fair, you're looking at players at the moment. You've got Kobbie Mainoo, who's doing bits at the moment for Man United at 18. Yeah. You've got players out in. You got Endrick, who's breaking through at 17. You've got Yamal at 16. So why should we just look at his age and say, you're too young to be starting? There's no reason to.
I don't think it should be based on age. It should be based on quality, and if you fit in, and if you can, physically manage the Premier League week in, week out. And I would love to see him strut his stuff in the Premier League. It's just I don't know if he's ready yet. We don't know.
But the problem is you have to make that decision unless Spurs are saying we're willing to wait to see if he's ready to sign a midfielder. But that would mean signing a midfielder late if we made that determination that he's not ready, because you have to give him a pre-season to see, basically.
Yeah. So, even if we don't make it, if he goes out on loan next season, like, do we have enough, or do we still need to sign more?
I think we probably need. If Lo Celso goes, we'll probably need another one. I would say,
because you're looking at the three players who could potentially go in the midfield next season. That's Lo Celso, Højbjerg, and I'd even put Skip in that boat. Like, is Skip ever going to kick on now with the midfield options that we have and get a starting spot and play week in and make an impact in this team? I question that.
I also question that, unfortunately, just because he hasn't improved in the past year, and that's sad to say. As much as I thought he actually at times did well last season, this season he just hasn't kicked on. He hasn't really put in the performances worthy of getting any sort of regular minutes, and he's well behind everyone else. So I don't see that changing anytime soon, especially if we're looking to improve that midfield.
Yeah, you also got players that are coming back next season. Alfie Devine from Plymouth. What's going to happen with him? What's going to happen with Jamie Donnelly as well? He seems to be way too good for the level he's playing at the moment. So there's a lot of question marks with these young players coming through, and which one, because you're probably out of those three, one of them is probably going to be part of the first team next season, you'd probably assume.
Yeah, yes, I was saying I really hope at least one of them is, because you look at like how Man City treated the development of someone like Phil Foden. Like for a few years, he was like obviously in and around the first team, and he had regular minutes, but he also wasn't a regular starter. Now look at him, he's an absolute star. But it's because I don't know if he ever went out on loan, but it's because of that time he had with the first team without too much pressure, but also the ability to come in when needed. That's what really gave him that platform to be that star he is now, where he's, week in, week out, he's one of the best players on the pitch now, and he's incredible. And I really hope we just have one of our youth players, one of these players that we're talking about, in that kind of boat where he's in and around the first team consistently, and we really believe in him.
I guess at Spurs, though, with our academy products and the guys that we've had come through the ranks and young players that have made their name at Spurs, it's never been like that. Like, they've only really made their name after really successful loan spells, like, when Kyle Walker went to Aston Villa. Danny Rose, where did he go? I can't remember. He went to another Premier League
Sunderland.
team. Or was it in the Premier League or in the Championship?
Sunderland in the Premier League.
So, I mean, like, these kind of players, they had successful loans, playing week in, week out in the Premier League, and then they came in at Spurs and really went on to the next level. So there's two ways you can look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, let's get on to our predicted lineup. Ange has been speaking in the press conference, and what is the team news going into this weekend?
So great news, Mickey van der Ven trained this week and is available to play, so that is really, really positive. Obviously, he suffered from that hamstring injury just before the international break and missed the Fulham game, but thankfully it wasn't too bad, and he is going to be available for this game. Richarlison didn't play any minutes during the international break and had a knee injury just before as well. He also missed the Fulham game, I believe. He came on, didn't he, against Fulham? He did come on against Fulham.
Sorry?
Richarlison.
Yeah,
but he didn't play any minutes in the internationals. Ange said he had been struggling with a bit of a niggle in his knee, which is why he didn't play during international break, but he did train today, and with a view of being available for tomorrow, so that's really positive as well. But the long-term absentees, Solomon, Sessegnon and Forster, remain unavailable.
All right, so I mean, this is probably the cleanest bill of health we've had all season, really.
There
was that one game where we had one, and then like the next game, everyone got injured again. But yeah, I probably shouldn't speak too soon.
Yeah, honestly. Wait till after the Luton game.
Don't want to tempt those gods, do I? But anyway, let's get into the predicted lineup. 4-3-3 formation as per usual. In goal is going to be Big Vic.
Yeah, who else? Pretty easy decision. Vicario obviously has to start, and hopefully he's not too busy in this one. We know Luton like to use set pieces, their advantage, so I'm sure they'll be targeting him. Yeah,
absolutely. Right back is obviously going to be Pedro Porro. Look, everyone had a poor game against Fulham, but I thought it was probably Pedro's one of his worst displays of the season, so hopefully he reacts from that.
Yeah, he's going to have a tough role because Alfie Doughty is confirmed fit for this game, and he's been a massive player for Luton this season on the left-hand side. He's pretty much their biggest creator when it comes to how many crosses he whips in, how many chances he creates. So Porro has to be wary of that factor, make sure he's not gaining too much influence in the game, because if you allow him... I remember even at the top the game we played against them at Kenilworth Kenilworth Road early in the season, I thought Doughty was giving Porro a real tough time in that game. So Porro's just got to make sure that he's asking more questions of Doughty than Doughty's asking of him.
Yeah. Right centre-back, Kuti Romero, and he's going to be coming up against the very aggressive striker they have,
Morris.
His name? Yeah, Carlton Morris.
Well, at least it's not Adebayo, who's in great form. It could be a front two of Woodrow and Morris, which they've been doing recently, but it also could be a 4-3-3 with Morris up front by himself. Either way, he's a very physical player. He likes to back into his defenders, likes to use his strength. So we just got to make sure that Romero's on top of that situation, not allowing Morris to gain an influence. And basically, allowing Morris to get the ball in his chest, hold up the play, and then all of a sudden get Luton up the pitch. Because if we avoid that situation, it's going to be very difficult for Luton to gain a foothold in the game.
Left centre back, we've gone for Mickey van de Ven, but do you think there's a case for Dragoshin to start this game, seeing as we have a quick turnaround to West Ham on Tuesday?
There is a case, but I do think he'll go for Van de Ven. If he's said he's available and he's fit, I think he'll probably go for him just because he's a safety blanket, isn't it? And I think we just feel a lot more comfortable with him in the team. As much as I do believe in Dragoshin, obviously didn't have the best first start against Fulham last time out. And I think there will be a temptation to just rest Van de Ven in view of playing him against West Ham, but I think if Andrew will think if he can play Van de Ven in both games, he'll do it, and I think that's what he's going to do.
Maybe he'll give Van de Ven like an hour or something, and then bring on Dragoshin potentially.
Maybe if the game's won, yeah.
Left back, we're going to go for Destiny Udogie, obviously having a great season this year, and I think he's going to be vital in this game.
Yeah, and another player up against Ogbene on the right, who's a right wing back. It becomes a difficult job for our fullbacks when we play oppositions who play with wing backs, because it's always difficult if they play a 3-4-3. Who do you go with? Do you go with the inside right forward, or do you go with the wing back? And that's going to be a decision that Udogie has to deal with, especially with Ogbene, who's very, very quick and has a lot of energy in his legs. And maybe it could be Andros Townsend as well playing on that side. So defensively, I'm sure he won't be worried about the situation, but it's just something to what we'll look out for. But I thought Udogie against, especially against Aston Villa, was back to his best, so hopefully he gets back to that kind of form.
Yeah. In the 6, we are going to go for Yves Bissouma. It's kind of a shootout between him and Bentancur. Bentancur has been away with Uruguay, playing 45 minutes in the second game, and I think he got about 25 minutes in the first game. With him arriving back whenever he did, and Bissouma being at Hotspur away for the whole of the international break, we've sided with Bissouma.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's been a player that, when fit, and just trusted him pretty much to start every time when fit. I know he had a poor game against Fulham, and I was actually taken off early against Fulham, but the fact that he hasn't gone away with internationals, Andrew will have 2 weeks with him to try and get his confidence back up and get him on the training pitch. So I do think he's going to put his trust in him, and especially given the fact Bentancur's playing with that broken toe, and he's still not back to his best as well, even though he had some good cameos, I thought, against Fulham and Aston Villa. I do think we're going to side with Bissouma, but Bissouma is going to have to watch himself, because he's going to be facing, in my opinion, one of the informed midfielders in the league at the moment in Ross Barkley. I think he's having an astonishing season.
Yeah, let's just hope Bissouma doesn't get that frustration again and get a stupid red card like he did in the previous game against Luton. Next up, we're going to go for Pape Matar Sarr, who's been a star this season. And I'm looking forward to seeing him play, because every time I see him play, I'm just loving it, to be honest.
Yeah, and he's got a big role to play, I think, more on the ball, in my opinion, than off the ball, because I do think off the ball we're going to be able to contain Luton, in my opinion. But I think Sarr needs to maybe making those late runs in the box, but he needs to making those effective passes in the final third and really help open up Luton, because I think if Sarr's on it, they just won't be able to handle what we've got to offer. I think there's going to be too many ways of us getting through. So Sarr's got a big role to play, in my opinion.
And then alongside him will be James Maddison, who had a really good cameo for England against Belgium. He was involved in everything, got that assist in the last second as well. So hopefully he can take that form into this game.
Yeah, and that would have hopefully done him the world of good, because obviously against Fulham didn't have the best game, was taken off early as well, and a lot of people are saying, is he back to his? Is he still suffering from an injury or whatever? All the narratives that come to play when you see a player like Maddison taken off early, but I think that, as you said, the cameo against Belgium, really good assist, and hopefully he can take that confidence into this game and start playing the way he was first 10 games of the season.
I'm just thinking about this now in terms of the lineup in the midfield. Do you think that there could be a situation where he goes Maddison and Kulusevski instead of Sarr to really try and combat beating down that low block and put Johnson on the right?
The reason I say no is because I don't think Luton do that low block. I mean, they will have times where they will be there just because of the amount of possession we have. But Luton are actually a team that kind of goes for you. They do attack and they do leave spaces. So I think this is probably the best balanced midfield to go for this kind of game. I think they won't be able to handle it. If we are struggling, I wouldn't be surprised if he does move Kulusevski into the centre for sure. But I do think he'll start like this.
Well, I guess that was a good spoiler for you guys, because Kulusevski is going to be on the right. And I think he had a successful international break, getting goal contributions in both games. So let's hope he can take that form into this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's been talking about his best position again in an interview over international break, and he's saying that in the future he wants to play what he called the Mazzala role, which is a half wide midfielder, half central midfielder. That's where he sees his best position and his future. And obviously that's quite interesting as to how he sees himself in the Spurs line, because he was asked, is this position not his best position, is this position his position or something like that, and he said no, he wants to play, he sees his future more central and in that more Mazzala role. So I do wonder how those comments will be taken at Hotspur way, because Ange obviously does like to use him on the right hand side, but I think from a creativity standpoint he needs to be on the pitch, and I think this is the best way to fit him in for now.
Yeah, I've always thought that, well, not always, but in very recent times, I've thought, his best role is through the middle, and I would like to see us, I've said it time and time again, I'd like to see us bring in a right winger and a left winger this summer and move Kulusevski and treat him more as a central player. But having said that, in this game, I think Kulusevski will be vital on that right wing. And also, you look back at the Luton game when we played them earlier on this season, how vital was Kulusevski in that second half when we went down to 10 men. He played up front and he just made that ball stick time and time again, didn't he?
He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
In the number 9 position, obviously, it's going to be Heung-min Son, who as well had a successful international break, scoring 2 goals in 2 games. And he's going to be back fit and firing for this one.
Yeah, he is going to be playing against a back three, so it's not going to be the easiest day for him, but I do think he's going to get some joy. I do think he's going to get opportunities to score, and I'm banking him to get on the score sheet with his unbelievable finishing ability, so I'm happy to see Son in the 9. Obviously, there's a case with Richarlison back fit and the scoring form he was on before he got injured, that maybe he gets the nod and maybe Son out to the left, but we just think that seeing as maybe Richarlison's not 100% yet, Son is definitely the best option. I do think he's our best number 9, so we're going to start him there.
And then to finish off on the left-hand side, a shootout between Brennan Johnson and Timo Werner, which we've sided with Timo Werner, more natural on that left-hand side, where Brennan Johnson has been playing well, has been getting consistent goal contributions as well, but we've just about sided with Timo.
Yeah, another player who didn't go away on international duty, and so I've just got a feeling that the fact, again, he's had more time just to be with Ange on the training pitch, and he's had a bit more of hasn't had to play the internationals and the stressful games like Brennan Johnson had to play. I think he's going to get the nod in this game, but obviously, yeah, Brennan got the nod against Villa and against Fulham, so I wouldn't completely rule out the chance of him playing, but I just feel like just because international break, Werner starts and then maybe Brennan comes in on Tuesday.
All right, well, let's run through that team lineup with you guys one more time. It's Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro right back, Destiny Udogie left back, a centre-back pairing of Kuti Romero and the returning Mickey van de Ven, Bissouma in the 6, Pat Matesar and Maddison in the midfield, Timo Werner on the left, Deki on the right, and Heung-min Son up top. If this is the lineup, what is your score prediction?
Yeah, I've gone 4-1 Spurs. I think the injuries to Luton are going to hit them hard. They have been hitting them hard, I think. And I also don't think they're the same when they're playing the big boys anyway against the top 6. They've given them all games, but I feel like away from home, they're just not the same threat as they are at home in front of their home crowd in a smaller pitch. So I do think being with home advantage, I think we'll take full advantage of that. And I think we will be able to open up Luton on a number of occasions. So I'm going for a convincing 4-1 win.
Yeah, I think that when you look at the way Luton play, I do think they will frustrate us early on in the game, maybe the first half an hour, 40 minutes. But I think once we do break that defence down, I think the floodgates could open a little bit and we could see ourselves scoring quite a few goals. It might take maybe even an attacking player to come on in the middle of the park. Giovanni Lo Celso, who we didn't mention, could be playing a part in this game. Lily White-Rose was mentioning on Twitter today that he sees Dane Scarlett playing a role in this game as well, which I question. But
well, he did score 5 goals, didn't he, in the international break?
He did. It'd be nice to see, but it's not even for the under-21s, it was for the under-20s. So it is quite a low level, let's be honest with that. So I'm going to go for 3-1 to Tottenham. Sim's going for 4-1. I want to know your score predictions in the comments section below. Kavama and Goma says Tottenham 5, Luton 0. Love that.
Well, Luton ship a lot of goals away from home.
Yeah, they do.
Also at home, they, as you say, ship 6 at home to City, 4 away at Liverpool. They 3 at home to Aston Villa. but they and also 4 away at Newcastle, but they did get a 4-4 draw on that game. But I don't see them as this defensive team. They are quite an attacking team, and they do leave themselves open. So I think there are going to be gaps to exploit here.
Yeah, I really hope so. But I got a feeling that they might, because they know who they're coming up against, the stadium that they're coming to. I do feel that they will err on the side of pragmatism a bit more, maybe than they usually do. Super chat here from a video complete saying no Bissouma. He wants to see Sarr, Lo Celso and Maddison in midfield.
Sarr in the 6. I mean, in his position, he hasn't really played this season, Sarr. So
didn't he play one game there this season?
Not that I can remember.
I kind of vaguely remember him playing one game in the 6, but I can't. Maybe I'm wrong.
But look, I wouldn't be against it, because I think if we play that formation, Luton will find it very difficult to contain Spurs. But as well, I feel like if we play that formation, they'll get chances as well. Whereas I feel like if we just put a Sarr next to Bissouma, I think it'll really limit Luton. And I think that as well, that we will still be able to pick the lock on many occasions. So that's why I wouldn't go to, because they're quite an offensive team, so I wouldn't go all out attack.
All right, well, let's...
Brighton did that and they got battered 4-0.
Yeah, it's true. Let's go into the match preview. We're looking at the form of the two teams coming into it. I mean, Luton have kind of just fallen off a cliff in recent weeks. They can't buy a win at the moment. They're conceding loads of goals. Is that mainly down to the injuries that they've got at the moment?
Yes. I think the injuries are definitely caught up with them, especially when you've got a striker like Gimenez who was in such great form, and then he gets ruled out, and all of a sudden you're not having a striker making as much use of the chances you're creating on the pitch like they were. So that has been a massive source of frustration. But I also feel like sometimes, some teams go through promoted teams go through a good period, and then it kind of catches up with them once they get found out a bit. I remember Hull one season, like for half the year they were like top of the league, and then
is that Marco Silva Hull?
Not Marco Silva, under what's his name, Phil Brown. It was a while ago, but I just remember like up until like December time they were like in the top 4 or like top, and then they literally like lost like the next like 16 games and only survived on the final day. So it can happen where teams kind of overperform and then they get found out a bit. So it doesn't surprise me, but what I would say about Luton is I still watch them even in games they lose, and they still play really good football. They're still a massive threat, and they're still very capable of scoring goals. The question is at the moment they're just not able to keep the back door shut. So I think for them, if they try and defend and they try and put 11 men behind the ball, I feel like Rob Edwards thinks they're on a hiding to nothing, because that's not how they like to play. That's not how he set them up to get through the Championship. They got through the Championship by being very attacking and playing a good style of play. So trying to be this defensive side doesn't work for them. So they try and really go at teams, and if they lose playing their way, and that's, I feel like, his approach. And it has given them some success, but when they've come up against the better teams, it has also been their undoing as well. Yeah,
you think that last away game for them, 3-0 up at half-time against Bournemouth, losing 4-3, that must have been a massive kick in the teeth for them, because if you're 3-0 up against anyone, no matter who it is, you've got to expect to go and win that game. And a Bournemouth side that were bang out of form as well in terms of results, and then they lose the game, surely that would have knocked the stuffing out of them.
Yeah, especially because it was such a big game. They would have got taken outside the relegation zone, and a lot of focus was on that game because that had been in their back pocket for such a long time, that game in hand. And the fact that they had that game in hand, they were 3-0 up, and then they couldn't hold on to it, and not even taking a point, they end up losing. I think that must have been seriously dejected them, and as well they followed up at home against Forest in a game against Forest, which was also a relegation 6-pointer, and only a last-minute equaliser kind of rescued them from a really damaging defeat. So I think the last few games have been very damaging for Luton and their morale. They'll obviously try and get that back in this game, but I do think it's taken a bit of a hit in recent weeks.
Yeah, they did go to at home to Aston Villa, 2-0 down in the first half, coming back and then again.
That's the point.
How many times have we seen that with Luton this season, where they've taken a big team all the way and then just lose it in the last minute?
Arsenal,
seen it so many times.
Arsenal,
Liverpool
it happened.
As well.
Liverpool, it happened. And I think against Liverpool at Anfield, they were 1-0 up at half time, but end up losing 4-1. So they're clearly not a team to be taken for granted. They're clearly a team that can even give the best teams a game. But also, what has been found out is every team does seem to find a way against them, and they do find it hard to get really regular results, especially recently. And I think from what I can take away is if you keep going at them, they do usually give you opportunities to score, and that's been the story of their season.
When you're looking at Spurs as well, you're looking at Ange Postecoglou has mentioned it in the past where he said that, maybe the players were a bit complacent today. They just turned up expecting to win the game. I can't remember what the game that was specifically for, but that was a feeling I got.
Fulham, I think, wasn't it?
No, it was before the Fulham game. He said that, and then we kind of reaffirmed that from the Fulham game. And maybe he said it again at the Fulham game. Maybe it was the second time he said it this season. But I was going to say, like, it was a feeling that I got after that Fulham game. That was the kind of vibe that the squad were like putting out there. Do you think it might be, in a strange way, a good thing that this Fulham game has come just before this Luton game? So they should not be taking this game for granted.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll never say it's ever a good thing, but I do think that hopefully it will be a lesson learned going into a game like Luton, where you're up against a team fighting for their lives. They're going to give absolutely everything, and not only that they've shown an ability to bloody the noses of some of the big teams. Yes, they do leak a lot of goals, but they also do get themselves on the front foot, and they do create chances. Even when they're losing, they do create chances against all these kind of teams from set pieces. If you allow them into the game and you allow them territory in your half, they have the ability to pile players into the box and cause you problems. So we just got to make sure that we're controlling the game, we're doing the right things, and when they do have opportunities on the counter or they do break away, that we're being super aggressive, stopping the attacks at source, stopping the supply to Carlton Morris, and making sure we're not allowing those long balls into his chest and allowing them to take the ball down and basically get Luton on the pitch. Not allowing Alfie Doughty to get up the pitch and cause problems on the left-hand side. And that means doing your defensive duties correctly. And I feel like, obviously, against Fulham, we didn't do that. We made it so easy for Fulham to attack us, and it was a really, really bad day at the office from Tottenham's point of view, from a defensive off-the-ball point of view. But I do believe if we do our defensive duties right, I think the attack will sort itself out. I really believe that, because I don't think Luton know how to protect a lead or protect a result.
I mean, it shows in the away games that they've won this season. They've only won 2 games away from home this whole season. That was against Sheffield United and against Everton. So 2 teams right at the bottom. So it would be a massive kick in the teeth. Massive, massive. And if Spurs do go and drop points in this game, that puts top 4 in massive jeopardy. Massive. Because if you're losing to Luton at home, then you can't say with a hand on your heart that what game you can safely win from now to the end of the season.
100%. There can't be any excuses about anything in this game. We have to get 3 points. And also, I want to see a convincing performance after what was so disappointing against Fulham. We need to get that confidence back, because everyone was on such a high after Villa game. Everyone thought that top 4 was not guaranteed, but everyone thought this is happening, we're going to get top 4, and then Fulham kind of brought us back down to earth a bit. So I want to be up in the clouds again. So let's have a convincing performance against Luton.
And that Fulham game just kind of knocked us all for 6, didn't it? Nobody was expecting it. No one was expecting to put in such a lackluster performance. So it's imperative that we respond in a positive way. But we spoke about the Luton injuries before. Let's go and have a look. This is an extensive injury list. It gives me memories of Spurs earlier on this season. Look at that. Like, Lockyer, Bell, Nakamba, Adebayo, Lokonga, Potts, Ogbene, Osho, Brown and Anderson. I mean, the majority of those start for them week in, week out.
Yeah, I think the big ones there are Ogbene, Lokonga, Adebayo, Bell, and obviously Lockyer's their captain as well. So I think those players are going to be massive misses, and those are the players as well who have made big differences this season for Luton and allowed them to put in a position to compete. They're still, to be fair, even with a lot of injuries, they're still kind of in games and they're still competing, but they just can't seem to shut the back door at the moment. They just seem to be leaking so many goals, and I think players like Lokonga make such a big difference, because he just gives them that element of tenacity in the middle, which they do miss without him, and is also quite a good technician. But with someone like Ross Barkley, who's in such great form this season, I've been so impressed with him. I think if he was playing for a team that wasn't Luton, I think he'd be a massive shout for the Euros. I really believe that he's playing that well. I just feel like playing for Luton really holds it against him, and then maybe that's why Southgate's not giving him an opportunity. But he's been like in every game, even when they're being battered, he's been a shining light for Luton, and he'd like, it's so hard to get the ball off him. He's so strong, and he's adding some more regular goal contributions as well. He's always been been a really good striker of the ball, but he's always been a very inconsistent goal scorer. But this season, he's really taking his game, seems to a new level. And it seemed to be a career that was fading away at some points. And it seemed like he went to, who was it in front? Nice. And he seemed to be, his career was dying a bit. He couldn't even get in the Nice team. Obviously, Chelsea, he had a terrible time. And now he's kind of reinvented himself at Luton and he's become a real player. I'll be shocked if he doesn't get a decent Premier League move in the summer.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see like what caliber of club he goes to if Luton go down. Where do you see him going to? Do you see him going to like another relegation battling team or maybe a mid-table, maybe Europa League, Conference League team?
Yeah,
where do you see him going?
I think he's better than relegation. I wouldn't be surprised if someone maybe like Brighton go for him. I think he could really fit into Brighton. Even like Aston Villa. I think he could do a really good job there. So I think anyone outside the top six should be looking at him thinking there's a really good value in that player because he's been outstanding. And not only has he been outstanding, he's been so consistent in every game. Yeah. He's playing well. So I've just got to give him so much credit because this is a player everyone wrote off. And I love to see players try and prove people wrong and have a bit of a renaissance late in their season. I know he's getting on a bit. Was he 29 now? So he's not young, but I'm loving that he's coming into his own and he's really taken that responsibility of being Luton's main player and best player, and he's been astonishing. I've been so impressed with him, so I think he deserves like a decent move to hopefully a team chasing Europe next season.
Yeah, Sean Pearce says West Ham. That could be one as well.
West Ham.
It seems like
good
a fit
option
there, Barkley to West Ham. But anyway, in terms of the striking options that Luton have, obviously we spoke about Adebayo and how much of a miss he is. But when you compare him to Carlton Morris, I just feel like Adebayo is a massive problem that everyone needs to take notice of. You saw when he was starting week in, week out for Luton, all you need to do is knock it in the box and he's got that physical presence to take it down, headers. He wins so much in the air, doesn't he, Adebayo? And I think Carlton Morris is a good striker, but I just feel you have to worry so much more about Adebayo. So I guess it's a positive thing that Adebayo's out and Carlton Morris probably playing.
Yeah, definitely. And as well, they used to play, sometimes they play up front too. And obviously they have that dual physical threat of Adebayo and Morris, and that could be very difficult to deal with, especially if they're playing a lot of long balls into the channels or into the front line. I think the difference between Adebayo and Morris is Adebayo has that physical threat, but he also has a pace threat as well. He's actually quite quick in behind, and that can be very, very difficult to deal with. It means if you push up, he can run in behind. If you sit deep, he's got a physical threat to win headers in the box as well, and he's got an incredible leap. Now, if Morris is a physical threat, he's going to be difficult to deal with. He throws his weight around a lot from set pieces. He does win a lot of headers, and he's quite good at holding the ball up. But one thing he doesn't offer is if we're pushing up the pitch, if they're trying to get him in behind, he's going to have no chance against people like Van de Ven and Romero to catch us out. So I think it's a massive plus that Morris is going to be the striker, although they could maybe play Woodrow alongside him, and obviously Woodrow is also quite a physical threat. Hasn't really done much. He's scored a couple goals since coming into the team for them in recent weeks in place of Adebayo.
Championship level player, though.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, he's I don't think he's quite good enough to cause different types of problems, albeit he's a very tall striker and he's also quite physical. So if they do have that dual physical threat, and if they are able to get set pieces, and that could be quite difficult to deal with. But I do envisage them going for the only one striker. One big miss as well, which I didn't know who was missing until I saw that graphic, was Gimenez, who's I think clocked one of the quickest speeds in the Premier League on the right hand side, and he can play wing back or on the right mid, and he's a really good source of on a counter attack, winning set pieces, getting to the byline, getting crosses in. So the fact he's missing will mean that again that ability on the counter is going to be even more diminished. And whether they go for Andros Townsend or maybe Jordan Clark, who, to be fair, Clark has been playing well, but he's again more of like a number 10 kind of player. He's not a player who you want on a counter. He's a kind of player who you want when you're having possession in the final third. You can get the ball to him and he can make something happen. If they're going to be without the ball for lots of the game, I don't know if Clark is the player you want on that kind of position.
Just looking at the stats, and actually Carlton Morris has more goal contributions in Adebayo this year, which surprises me. Carlton Morris has 8 goals and 4 assists, and Adebayo has 9 goals. But I think
a few penalties, I think, in there.
Yeah, first of all that, and second of all, I think a lot of that is maybe coming on against tired legs later on in games for Carlton Morris, because I think it's a good option to have when you start Adebayo and then bring him on as another physical threat.
And also, I think, if I remember rightly, Morris actually started the season as their main striker, and then Adebayo broke into the team. He had one on that mad run, then he kind of got injured. So, and then Morris has come back in. He's had a few penalties, and as well, as I've said, he's a big threat from set pieces. I think when you're talking in the box, I think Morris and Adebayo, they're just as much of a threat as each other. It's more about in general play when you've got that space, especially how we like to play. You know, Van der Ven, Romero right up on the halfway line. You much more want Adebayo there than you want Morris. So it's still a positive, but it still doesn't mean that Morris isn't going to be a threat.
Player returning back to N17 this weekend in Andros Townsend. I think we're due to see maybe a cut inside and ballooning over the crossbar, hopefully.
He's actually been all right for Luton, I have to say. Obviously, he's a player who couldn't find a club in the summer, and he told this heartbreaking story about a move to Burnley that he had lined up. It was okayed by the club, and then last minute they pulled out the deal and decided to go with a younger player, and that must have really hurt him, because he's been a player who was out injured for such a long time, and then looked like he got an opportunity. But it looks like Luton again have given him a second wind, and actually he's been quite impressive. He's done a good job. I don't think he's been outstanding, but for a free transfer for a player who everyone didn't want to basically take a chance on, he has made a difference. He has made an effect. He's got a few assists. I think he's scored a goal as well, so he's done decent, and he's actually been quite a threat. Not to say I think Spurs should look at him and be worried about it, but obviously he's going to be super motivated to come back to Tottenham, have a bit of a point to prove, try and provide something effective in the final third, and as well from set pieces he's got good delivery. He can whip in a good cross, and as well I think he's got quite good delivery on his left and right foot, so he can be quite difficult to deal with from that point of view. But obviously he's not the player, he's not as good as he used to be, and he's hopefully a player we should be able to deal with. But you never know, someone like Andros Townsend, I'm sure he would love to come back to haunt Spurs.
Because Andros Townsend, he's got it in him to produce a moment of magic, doesn't he?
Yeah, like a 30-yarder. Yeah, he has that.
He has it in him, but 9 times out of 10, they'll balloon over the bar. But then that one time, it'll just rifle into the top corner with Andros Townsend. And he'll love to do that at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, especially how it ended at Tottenham as well, with him falling out with the coaching staff and what have you.
He scored against Arsenal, I think, didn't he? Did he score in the 4-3?
He might have done.
I think he's
had one goal this season.
I think
it was against Newcastle.
Newcastle didn't score against Arsenal.
He might have got an assist in that game against Arsenal. And I can't believe that Andros Townsend's 32 years of age.
I know, time flies.
I think that's just showing my age more than anything.
I remember that the season we sold Bale, he was everyone thought he was like the heir to the throne. He came in that season and he was a youngster, and we were wowed by him, and it never really happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, everyone started singing Andros Townsend. He was born to play for Spurs,
and he was playing for England. I remember, if it wasn't for a really bad injury, he would have gone to the World Cup, and then he got an injury before it, and he never got an opportunity.
He scored his England debut.
He did against, I can't remember who it was against. I think it was Macedonia or something. He scored a banger, 25 yards, top corner. And I remember he once scored a goal against Italy in a friendly, from 25 yards as well. So he's had his moments. This is a player who's got quality, but I think it's always been that consistency that's held him back, and that's why he's at Luton at 32.
It just goes to show, doesn't it? Because when he was in the academy, I remember so clear, what impact he was having in the academy. Everyone was saying, this guy's definitely going to make it. He's going to be a star for Spurs. And then you see how their careers progress. So it's so important for these players to just, keep on track, keep focused throughout. Even when they make it in Spurs, don't get comfortable, just keep going and keep trying to improve yourself. And maybe Andros Townsend got a bit too comfortable because, with those fights going on with the coaching staff, that should never be happening for a player like that.
Well, he got frustrated because Poch wasn't picking him, essentially. And that was the case. And instead of trying to earn his spot back, he moved. He went to, was it Palace at the time? And he had quite a good career at Palace, to be fair. He had a decent time there. I actually thought there was one point at Everton.
Went to Newcastle.
Oh, yeah, went to Newcastle. He actually was great in Newcastle for 6 months, I remember. And then
he played 13 games.
Yeah, he was really good. And then he moved to Palace. I remember he was really good for those 13 games. Then went to Everton, had a decent time, then picked up a big injury. So I think also injuries has been something that's held him back quite a lot. At crucial times, he's picked up really big injuries where he might have been able to kick on. But who knows? Maybe he's going to have a moment of magic on the weekend.
Yeah, let's hope not. But I'm sure he'll get a good reception from the fans, being a Spurs boy and everything. But look, Spurs need to come out strong in this game. We need to right those wrongs of the game a couple of weeks ago against Fulham. I'd like to see us, I say this every time to be honest, but I'd like to see us have a really strong start, maybe get a goal or two early, and then it can be a bit of a party time in the stadium.
I think that's always the goal. When I see Tottenham play for the first 5-10 minutes, they usually have a real good go at especially at home, at the opposition, and try and get that early goal, really unsettle them. And usually when you do score that early goal, the opposition's game plan has to change, or it goes out the window a lot of the time. So I do think Spurs will go for that approach. And I think we should. I think we're going to open them up. I really do. I think it's going to be a comfortable victory. I think Luton are going to try and hurt us, but I do think because of the way we keep the ball, I think they're going to really struggle to get up the pitch, and they're going to really struggle to get in the game. And I think as well, the way we press, it's going to be difficult for Luton to get out of it. The only way I see them doing it is going long to Morris and him being able to hold it up. And look, I'm sure on a few occasions, if he can be able to hold it up, and especially if he's able to bring Alfie Doughty into play, who I think is, one of their chief creators as well. He's been such a big player for them this season. If they get Alfie Doughty involved, then they can and win some set pieces or allow him opportunities to whip crosses in the box. Then all of a sudden they can cause problems. But I do think those opportunities are going to be really few and far between. And I think they might get a goal, but I think the amount of chances Spurs are going to create, in my opinion, is going to be too much for Luton. And if we're clinical on the day, I think this could be a big scoreline.
I'm kind of worried now after that. I'm really worried because every time Spurs go into it with that kind of mentality, we kind of fall flat on our faces. So let's hope you're not tempting the gods there.
I hope so. I hope not. But also, you remember the chances we created very early on against Luton last time.
We could 5-0 up in the first 5 minutes.
We only won that game 1-0, but the first 10 minutes.
About 6 open goals or something.
Porro had one, Kulusevski had one, I remember. I think Son had one as well. We could have been easily out of sight before Luton got back in that game. And then obviously the red card changed it, and it was a struggle in the end of the game. But they give you chances. They really do. Every team they play against, they give them chances, and I think it's going to be no different in this game. So if Spurs are at their clinical best, we shouldn't have a problem, in my opinion.
Well, there you have it. That is our match review. Sim is going for a 4-1 win. I'm going for a 3-1 win. You've got Barnaby and Marlon with you in the studio tomorrow for the live watch along. Me and Sim will be at the game, hopefully bringing home 3 points. So, yeah, you've got 10:30 as well, the Ange Postecoglou embargoed press conference, so to wait for that. And, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We'll see you all tomorrow. It's match day. Tottenham are back. We'll see you all later. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.